Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for December 3rd, 2025. Happy holidays to everybody out there. We're definitely in
Yes.
Christmas season now. I mean, we're at the Christmas season in my house as soon as Halloween ends.
Yeah,
But yeah, Thanksgiving, officially over
that's
in the
right.
U.S. last week. And yeah, Christmas music, house is all decorated. Big party this weekend. Every year, cookies, cocoa, and cocktails. You're all invited. Make your way out to Phoenix. You can all come.
Yeah.
Plenty of
Careful what you wish for.
yeah. Oh, I'd be happy to have anybody show up. I mean, we go all out. Decorated the outside of the house this weekend as well. So a really good time. As far as DC books, 11 books this week. I gotta admit, beyond like my top two, I started to have a hard time ranking after the top two because everything else just felt kind of meh.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a down week for me in a lot of ways. Even the DC KO stuff, which we'll talk about more in detail when I get to it. Rocky will have some stuff to add as well. So yeah, it wasn't the best. I will make note of the fact that I'm making some holiday lists this year. So if you're curious, I'm doing like a top. I say top 10, it's more like a top 12 for various publishers of different collections and art books and what have you. So if you're looking for some cool gifts this year, just go and check out the Comic Source YouTube channel. And that being said, if you're listening audio only, all the content comes out on the Comic Source podcast feed, available wherever you get your podcast. Just do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. And if you're traveling this holiday season, you want stuff to listen to, you have thousands and thousands of episodes to go back and listen to if that's your preference. But if you are listening to us audio only, just a quick reminder that it comes out every week on Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom! On YouTube. So you can see the art, you can see the covers, you can see our smiling faces as we break down these books every week. And then, like I said, the Comic Source YouTube channel is where all the gift guides are going to come out this year, all the other Comic Source content, as well as the 12 fireside chats this year with some of my favorite creators. So those will be starting up in the 12 days counting down to Christmas. So starting on December 14th, running through Christmas. So yeah, a little bit underwhelmed this week. Which is not necessarily to be unexpected, just because December is such a lame duck month for a lot of comic book companies. I was talking, I'm doing these fireside chats, so I'm talking to creators, and I won't name any names, but even they're like, yeah, they're like the deadlines are crazy right now. Everybody is like at this particular publisher or that publisher is like pushing to get everything in because once all the scripts are turned in, then you do kind of have to wait for the art from the artist, but they try to put all these books to bed like by December 10th. So that, by December 10th, everybody that works in the office, and I say that, works in the office, works in editorial, most of them working remotely these days. They don't have to work. Like they're off for the rest of the year because, all the deadlines are met, all the books are in. So, but it's kind of interesting from a creator standpoint that it's this crunch. And then it feels like I said, like kind of this lame duck period of time where we already have all the books from the end. By this time next week, we'll have all the books, even some January books, because they'll all be already sent to press and final approvals and whatever. So we can read way ahead. Of course, I don't have time this time of year to read way ahead, but I say that to say it's an interesting time, and you'll see this year with the way the holidays are falling. New Year's Eve is on a Wednesday this year. DC's not putting out any books on New Year's Eve. So Rocky and I haven't talked about it yet, but we'll have to chat on if we're going to do a New Year's Eve episode, DC Spotlight. Maybe we'll talk about our favorite DC books of the year. Maybe we'll just take the day off. Who knows? But more to come as that gets a little bit closer. But anyway, Rocky, how did you feel about the week overall? Were you underwhelmed like I was?
I was a little underwhelmed. Yeah, just a little underwhelmed. Yeah, I got there was 5. My top 6 I enjoyed, but there was definitely I didn't really have a great time reading my my bottom 5 titles. To be honest, I continue to evaluate, and I'm going to have a lot of commentary when. I'll definitely be doing my top DCs for the year, and I've got some commentary. You and I were talking last week. We talked about the absolute titles, and you said that there's a lot of good mainstream DC titles. I've done a lot of soul searching as to why I'm so impressed and why I'm so excited about Absolute, because the excitement that I have and my enjoyment of the Absolute line defies some of my own. It surprises even me, and the reasons why I like it. I haven't come up to a satisfactory answer to myself as to why I'm enjoying Absolute so much. Even the ones that I'm less excited about, like might be Absolute Flash, I'm still enjoying them. I'm enjoying the whole universe itself, and I have a theory on it and the gist of it. And I'll just give you a little bit of a spoiler. I think I love the absoluteness of it all. I love the fact that evil has an edge, and I think it all comes down to that. I really do. And it feels like always that there's more at stake. And maybe that's why I'm kind of excited about DCKO. I love the idea of evil having an edge, and that's okay. And it seems to inspire. Just the storytelling seems to be enough that keeps me glued. But in any event, I'm moving more and more out of the mainstream DC. I got to tell you, in terms of my internal excitement, I acknowledge good writing when it's there, but I got to tell you, Absolute just really keeps pulling me in, including Green Lantern this week. I might add.
It's not. I mean, you're not saying anything that's not kind of the prevailing sentiment. It honestly, it makes me sad that that's the case. That so many people are enjoying Absolute. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that Absolute titles are selling great for DC. It's a massive success. And, we talked about it last week. It's giving creators more freedom to take swings, not just in Absolute, but maybe in DC Next Level. Because, again, DC editorial saying, hey, we gave them the creative freedom and it was a success. So maybe now we'll give them creative freedom over here on these titles. So I get all that. But it makes me sad that the Absolute titles are outselling the other titles so much because, like I've said, I think part of the reason is people know or they've come to understand that the Absolute titles don't have all the canonical continuity that's tied in, it doesn't have all the baggage. So people that, hey, where's a good place to start reading Batman? Oh my God, I get that I can start here or there or whatever, but it still bothers me that there's all these other main universe Batman issues that I haven't read. But if I want to go read Absolute Batman, I read 14, 15 issues and I'm caught up. I've read absolutely everything. There's something to be said for that. And I think that's, part of why it's selling. I acknowledge what you're saying about why it's working. And I don't disagree. And in a way, it kind of ties into what I find most interesting about the Absolute titles, but it's not exactly the same. So you're talking about evil has an edge. What I like about it the most is the fact that anything can happen, right? Like even when we get these other titles, like Matt Fraction's Batman, we're going to be reviewing the latest issue this week. There's certain things you just don't expect to happen because it's the mainstream Batman title. And even if they do happen, you expect it to be kind of a fake out, or it'll get retconned, or it'll get undone in some way. I'm surprised Alfred's been dead as long as he has, because that's one of the things that we keep waiting for DC to undo or what have you. So part of the reason that I think Absolute and what I enjoy about it is the fact that you can be surprised because anything can happen. And part of that is because evil has the edge. Anything can happen. There's different kind of stakes and consequences or whatever. So I think that's where the Absolute titles for me shine. But I still, with the exception of Absolute Superman, I'm probably still more favoring the mainstream titles. Like I love what's happening in Aquaman and Green Lantern. I love what's happening in the Superman titles as well. Green Arrow that just finished up. I'm enjoying those more, with the exception of Absolute Superman. I'm enjoying those more than Absolute Batman, or generally speaking. Now, Absolute Batman, I was off it for a while, as you know. It was ranking way down for me. It wasn't really engaging. It was hard to top that moment where Batman punted that kid. But then, obviously, the last couple of issues, it's Snyder and Dragotta pulled me back in. The Welcome to Gotham moment was amazing, and what have you. But yeah, I'm in a different spot, and yeah, it's really interesting. But anyway, let's dive into this week's titles. Obviously, before we do, this is my last pack of these Fleer Brilliant Superman cards. Kicking it off with Gangbuster there. First, that was a secret identity Superman. Was getting split personality, taken over by a guy named Jose Delgado. Eventually became paralyzed. We have a Superwoman, the Lana Lang version of Superwoman. We have another one of these special insert.
Lobo.
Special insert there. We've got a Lex Luthor in his power armor. appropriate these days. We've got finishing up with an Ultraman, fantastic Ultraman. It looks like
Nice.
Yvonne Reese art. That's fantastic. So that's the last of those packs. God, it took me a while to open them. I'm sure we forgot plenty of times, and that's probably part of why it took so long. But anyway,
actually, speaking of Ultraman, I'm looking forward to Ultraman and Owlman are going to be in the next issue of World's Finest by Mark Waid. So we get to delve into Earth 3, Crime Syndicate, get a Crime Syndicate story penned by Mark Waid, or scripted by Mark Waid. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't read it yet. I've seen it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, I haven't read it either, but I did notice in the latest solicitations, they're bringing back that Batman-Superman fusion character.
Yeah. What's his? I don't know what his name is. You remember his name?
Yeah. I think his name is Fusion or something like that.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Which makes it, it's a great concept, right? Because we have the merging of Joker and Luthor. Because he kind of came and went, that character. Didn't make as big of a splash as they probably were hoping. But anyway, let's kick it off with the first book we're going to talk about this week, which is Birds of Prey. Not only is it the finale of the Unreality story arc, it's the finale of the series, written by Kelly Thompson. Sami Basri is the penciler for for all the pages except for pages 10 through 15. Or actually, yes, because Vicente Cifuentes handles the pencils for those pages along with the inks for those pages. And then Adriana Lucas on colors and Clayton Cowell on letters. This didn't make either of our top 5. And I have a feeling that, and I think I've enjoyed this series overall slightly more than Rocky. But I think for both of us, being that we're such huge fans of Kelly Thompson, and I keep going back to when she was writing not Spider-Woman, that was Carla Pacheco. She was writing Black Widow as well as Captain Marvel over at Marvel. And those were, even though they were solo titles starring female leads, they were, in a way, they were team books because there was a lot of supporting cast for both the main characters, both Natasha Romanoff and Carol Danvers, and a lot of the supporting cast was female. So in a way, they were kind of like female team books, much like the Birds of Prey was. I don't know how much of those that Rocky read. I read all of them. I loved both of those titles from Kelly Thompson, and she nailed it when it came to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel and Black Widow. Yeah, and they were fantastic, and they were so good. And it's what really, like, I knew Kelly Thompson prior to that, but that's what really made me a huge fan of her, reading those two titles along with her Black Cloak series that she does with Meredith McLaren. So, that's what really kind of made me follow anything that she did. And then she did Cull with Mattea de Iluis, which was fantastic. But I will say, despite the fact that what I loved most about this Birds of Prey series was the characterization and the interaction between the characters, this book, as a team book, it never clicked the way that those two did. And part of it was the art. I don't feel like they ever really got a good artist on it that really captured the kind of the feel of what I would want from an artist in this. The colors tended to be more muted. The art was never really dynamic. Not to sound too much like Rocky, but the Birds of Prey were never really sexy. And so for me,
thank you. I appreciate that, Jace.
Yeah. So it just, as much as I enjoyed it, and the character interactions were highlights, and the characterization, especially of Big Barda, like, I love the way Kelly Thompson wrote, like, the personality she gave Big Barda was awesome. But ultimately, this just, it underwhelmed. It underwhelmed, and it never quite clicked. And it happens sometimes where, it just, for whatever reason, the series doesn't come together. But I mean, 28 issues over 2 years, almost 2.5 years, it's nothing to sneeze at, but it feels like a missed opportunity a little bit. So it didn't rank in my top 5. And I imagine it'll be a little bit before we see Birds of Prey again. I would not expect, and I know nothing. I'm not speaking. I'm not trying to be spoilery, anti-spoilery, or pretend like I know something that I don't. But I don't expect to see a Birds of Prey next level book. I just don't. I think it's time to let this property rest for a little while.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Yeah, I can be very specific as to why this series never worked for me. I enjoyed Captain Marvel by Kelly Thompson. I enjoyed even Scarlet, which was one long drawn out action scene over 5 issues. Her Scarlet, her over in the GI Joe Energon universe.
Yeah, that was good.
I love The Call is great, and of course Absolute Wonder Woman. But for whatever reason. Two things. The best story, the best arc that this Birds of Prey series had was the first 6 issues. I thought the art it never met the art in the first 6 issues. I enjoyed, but then it seemed to just meander, and the storytelling. I just didn't enjoy the storytelling. I thought the plotting. I didn't like the stories. I know Kelly Thompson is capable of telling a good story. It just so happens the story that she wrote for Birds of Prey, I didn't enjoy. And I thought they were a little decompressed, and there was too much talking heads. I didn't find the characterization as deep as I would like, because quite frankly, there wasn't enough of the DC universe in here. I didn't find there was enough interactions with other characters of the DC universe. Quite frankly, I thought the characters were more obscure. The character she introduced, Sin, they never really hit with me, never really connected. And, that's and by the way, that's different than when Gail Simone was on the title. It just seemed a little bit more. Something was missing, and I echo your sentiments about the art. Gavin Guidry, I don't mind Gavin Guidry's art, but for whatever reason, it just never hit like early on. I don't think Gavin Guidry is the artist in this particular issue, but at the earlier issues, I thought his art was sort of growing on me. But anyways, I'm glad this series is over. It needs a break so it can come back better than ever. And I also want to give a shout out to the cover right behind your head. For those listening, behind Jace's head on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, is the cover by who is
Serge Acuna.
Serge Acuna, yeah, I love his art, and that's my favorite cover. And there's a Russian doll variant cover as well. That's also quite good. Above my head.
Yeah, Danielle Di Niculo on the Russian doll variants. All right, up next, Batgirl number 14, written by Tate Brombal, Stephen Sergovia on art, Rain Barretto on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. Not regular series artist, Takeshi Miyazawa on this, and I really do think Miyazawa's art, it's really grown on me. I wasn't sure what to expect. Like, I knew his art mostly, I talked about this before, from Met Cadet U over at Boom, with Greg Pak writing, and it seemed it was a lot more juvenile. But from the start, he's really nailed the art on this series. That's not to say that Segovia's art's not good. I think it kind of fits the style, and it worked. And there's tons of action. It's very fast paced in this issue as well. But that being said, you want to talk about decompress. I'm ready for this story. We are 14 issues in, and we're still on the beginning story of this. Cassandra Cain is still trying to get revenge for her mother being killed. I'm ready to move on. I've talked before about how much I like Cassandra Cain, but I like her in Gotham and this kind of globe-trotting adventure with the following up with the seeds of the past, the threads of the past of Lady Shiva is just not for me. So that's why it comes in at number 10 for me. Not quite last. I should say Birds of Prey came in at number 11. That was what came in last for me. But this comes in at number 10. And maybe the biggest shock in this episode, everybody, is this is actually not in Rocky's top 5 either. No. But I'm sure you got plenty of things to say about it, Rocky. So take it away.
Well, it came in at number 7 for me. And I'm still really enjoying this. It's funny how you say that you feel that this is very decompressed and that the story is never ending. I feel that I think Tate Bromball's got a good job in my eyes in sort of breaking it up into chunks. You don't need to read this second like this particular chapter if you don't want. You could have stopped in the first 6 issues. I like the continuing saga because I believe Lady Shiva is a legacy character. And you know what? You got to start somewhere. And I'm hoping that while there's one guy out there, whenever there's one guy like you out there, Jace, that maybe Lady Shiva doesn't float your boat, that hopefully there's 3 or 4 more that she does. What is that saying? You know, a journey of a thousand miles requires a first step. Well, maybe these are first steps to get Lady Shiva back into the limelight again. Lady Shiva's believed to be dead. I like the action here. I like that Cassandra Cain is learning about maybe some of the secrets that Nisa, who's the sort of like the lost daughter of Ra's al Ghul, who basically she's been lying to. Nisa has a secret. She's got a secret plan to obtain the blue poppies and bring them back to Sansura to basically utilize the blue poppies and to become as tyrannical as she's accusing the unburied of being. And there's a lot of machinations on here. We know that Angel Breaker and the rest of the crew are fervently on Nisa's side here. Cassandra Cain wants this. She's clearly leading to a betrayal. Her and her newly found brother Tenshi, who's Jade Tagger. There's a lot of characterizations going on here. Tate Brumbal's he's handling a lot of characters here. Even though this is called Batgirl, this is really a team book because there's a lot of characters he's handling. And I think that for just being a book called Batgirl, he's doing a good job making this feel like he's handling it. He scripted a lot of interesting moments with utilizing many characters because there's a lot of players in this story, and I think he's doing a reasonably good job of handling it all. Better, I might add, than what I'm enjoying over in JSA, just by way of comparison. No put down to Jeff Lemire, he's doing an admirable job in his own right, but Tate Bromwell, I think, who I was quite hard on in the Green Lantern Dark series, I really enjoy what he's doing at Batgirl.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I think I keep complaining that it's not set in Gotham, and if it was in Gotham, I think I'd enjoy it more. Because what you could do, and here I am playing script doctor. You could set it in Gotham where Cassandra Cain could be trying to establish sort of more of a civilian identity, and then she has all these things from the past, baggage from the death of her mother, all these characters showing up in Gotham rather than her traveling there. But that would stretch the story out even more because then you got to make space for pages dealing with her regular life, whatever. And does that really make as much sense? Because this really, other than Lady Shiva showing up in Gotham in the first couple issues to warn Cassandra Cain that these villains are coming, ever since then, this has been a book where Cassandra Cain's been on the road. You know what I mean? Does it make sense for everybody to come to Gotham to go after her? Or does it make more sense? It probably makes more sense logically for her to be out there exploring these different mystical realms and kind of almost walking in the steps of her mother's past. So, logically, I get that it makes sense, and it's just me complaining because again, I'm like, man, I want more Gotham because I like Cassandra Cain in Gotham. But you're right that some these ideas are interesting. Seeing Nisa, the blue poppies, what are they called? The
Unburied.
Unburied. Yeah, I kept wanting to say unwoken. I'm like, that's not right. Unburied. So anyway, let's move on. Next book is in both of our top 5. And it's been one that I have struggled with at times, but I encourage you if you're struggling with it as we did. Now that there's a big chunk of these, go back and read it. Rocky actually has a YouTube kind of tutorial video that's going to come out at some point.
I'm still working on the editing. I ended up screwing up my sound and I almost lost it, but I've recovered it. But I've just been too damn busy to upload it. But I'm glad I waited because I might add 5 minutes of it because of some revelations in this issue.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, and I said at one point, if you can set aside what you know about the Green Lantern mythos from the main universe, and that's kind of the first step. Set that aside and then go in and then there are other similarities. I won't give it away. Again, go watch Rocky's video when it comes out. And kind of on that note, I mentioned before to subscribe to both our channels. Make sure you ring the notification bell so you know when new content comes out. And obviously like and subscribe. All that stuff helps the algorithms. And of course, we always like comments and that sort of thing, getting conversations going in the comments. But I'm really enjoying this. It has started to click for me. But again, it took me going back and rereading it and taking my time and not having a situation where, okay, I got to read these 15 books this week, of which one of them happens to be Absolute Green Lantern. Instead, let me read, 8 issues of Absolute Green Lantern, take my time and really examine the concepts that are being introduced there because there's a lot there to unpack. And I feel like we've kind of gotten over the hump, because originally it felt like every time we got a new issue of Absolute Green Lantern, two things happened. We would get another character introduced by Al Ewing that was recognizable in name, if not in version. So a new absolute version of, whomever, Tomar Ray or Sinestro or, whoever. We'd get a new version, and we'd get more questions. After reading it, we'd have more questions, and we weren't getting any answers. It felt like watching an episode of Lost back in the day, which I dropped off that show for exactly that reason. I can't just continually have questions with no answers. And my understanding, I'm glad I dropped off, because apparently that series ended with more open questions than you got answers. But anyway, we've kind of started to get some answers here. Yes, we're still being introduced to questions, but it feels like it's leveled out quite a bit. So that's really interesting. As far as this particular issue, Sid Kotian handles the art in this issue, which it's similar enough to Janoy Lindsay's art, but I kind of like it more than Lindsay's art. It has a little bit more of a finished feel, as opposed to Lindsay's art, which feels a little bit, a little bit unfinished. But anyway, Al Ewing's a writer. Pressy, just single name, Pressy, like Madonna or Cher, apparently, on colors. And Lucas Catoni handles the letters. And what's interesting is we get almost a mashup. So Nemesis, who's kind of a master of disguise in the main universe, we get him here as more of an outright villain. He's more of an anti-hero, or more of a hero, maybe slightly anti-hero in the main universe. Here we get him, and he works for Hector Hammond, who is almost a Lex Luthor type in this Absolute universe. Owns a bunch of companies, super rich and whatever. But here, Nemesis, more of a master of disguise. He's an assassin for hire, and he's currently working for Hector Hammond. So we get some of the tropes, if you will, or the characteristics of Nemesis. Like he's, like I said, a master of disguise, but he it's interesting. He has these masks that can be dissolved really easily by this like thing in his collar that like sprays out, and can dissolve the mask. And then sometimes he'll have his real face underneath there, but then sometimes he'll have another mask under there. So it's almost like, multi-layered. But what's interesting is the disguises he uses here are disguises of other DC characters, like Terry Long, who's a longtime Teen Titans, the new Teen Titans, the Wolfman Perez, and even married Donna Troy at one point. And then later, when he shows up at Cameron Chase's apartment, he's disguised as Goldface, which is a completely different character, who was a Green Lantern foe back in the day with the whole yellow, when it was the yellow impurity and that was the weakness or whatever. So it's interesting to have Al Ewing kind of mashing up. Wait, Nemesis is Gold? I guess DC has enough characters you're not worried about it, that one of Nemesis' alter egos is Goldface, apparently. But wouldn't you want, like, Nemesis has his own character, Goldface has his own character? I guess not. I guess it doesn't really matter. But again, these ideas that Al Ewing of anybody who's doing these absolute titles, I mean, Jason Aaron's talked about it a lot, right? Enjoy the journey. Don't be in a hurry to introduce new characters, whatever. Man, Al Ewing's every issue we get a new, an absolute version of another character, because we also get Simon Boz showing up. He's been mentioned before, I think, but he's mentioned and shows up in this particular issue as well. So yeah, Al Ewing, he's not pulling any punches, man. We're getting a lot of action, and it makes me wonder if, speculation-wise, if Absolute Green Lantern is not the title to be buying in terms of, hey, look who he first appeared here. Every issue, it's first appearance of somebody. So it's pretty interesting, and it also feels like it's picked up the pace a little bit. Although I will admit that, when we talk about all those questions that were being raised in the early issues, a lot of them we still don't have answers, but we've just sort of moved on. And even I have kind of forgot, because we still don't have a good explanation for why the Lantern artifact landed where it landed. Sinestro showed up and then hasn't, and then he hasn't been seen in like 3 issues. What's he up to? That kind of thing. But there are hints. There are hints that answers to those things are coming. But I will say, just to play devil's advocate, any nitpick I have or any negative about the series is that it is still such a huge scope of what Al Ewing has established as a foundation, that he needs like 5+ years. He needs like 100 issues on this title, I think, in order to do justice to all of the ideas that he's come up with. And maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but, 50, 60 issues, I would think. I mean, and again, you can't help but, at least I can't help but draw comparisons to the concepts and the ideas that he had in Immortal Hulk. And that took 30 issues to flesh out. And I don't think that Immortal Hulk was ultimately as complicated as what he's established here. That was just all about, the one below being this ancient monster and the origins of Gamma. And it was a much simpler concept, if not kind of wrapped in some, philosophical things about religion and good and evil or what have you. But the concepts here, which pull from some pretty familiar other science fiction universes in a way, are much more complicated and much more fertile to be kind of fleshed out, if you will. So I'm in this weird place with Absolute Green Lantern. Based on the quality of books this week, this was a no-brainer to be in the top 5. In another week, it might not make my top 5. But again, I just wonder if this is going to be one of those series that's inconsistent for me, because there is so much foundation that I'm sure in the future there's going to be issues where I just feel like I'm not getting enough to build on that foundation. So, but if it's good character work, like last issue, wasn't really an issue that focused on building on the foundation. It focused more on, hey, let us tell you a little more about who Joe Mullen is. And I'm fine with that, because that works in its own right as well. But being that Al Ewing has, crafted something that is so massive in scope and massive in potential, that's going to be at times a hard balance to maintain, giving us good characterization, giving us enough answers to, give us feel like we're getting forward momentum in the story. So, I mean, Al Ewing is capable of doing it. He's a super talented writer, but it's just the nature of monthly comics. You can't always hit a home run. So, anyway, what are your thoughts on this particular issue, Rocky?
I thought things are ramping up. We're starting to get more information. I echo your sentiments about Al Ewing certainly sort of taking his time. There is a lot here about the Green Lantern mythology itself, and to call it a Green Lantern mythology is a little bit of a misnomer, because it's really, I'm calling it the absolute spectrum. I don't call it the emotional spectrum. I think it's more appropriate. For me, it's easier to just call it the absolute spectrum, because it really, emotions are a corollary to it in different ways, but it's really the absolute spectrum. And we learn a little bit more. We get I feel sorry for we get the absolute version of Terry, and I forget his last name, but he's the ex-husband of Donna Troy. I think he's dead
Terry
in
Long,
the Terry Long. Yes, he's dead in the mainstream DC universe, if I remember correctly. So
he's dead here now too.
He's dead here now too. So he certainly doesn't last long. Poor Terry, we hardly knew thee. Not that anybody particularly probably cares, but yeah, it's. We just get more of the same character development between at the beginning of this issue. We meet Nemesis, who kills Terry. He's clearly working for Hector Hammond. Hector Hammond, ever since the Evergreen incident being the incident where that Green Lantern symbol slammed down on that countryside, and it led to Joe Mullen getting Green Lantern powers, Hal Jordan getting the Black Hand, John Stewart getting the gold power, and Abin Sur having his Green Lantern powers stolen by the rogue Joe Mullen. That's being investigated, of course. Remember, we know from Absolute Evil that Hector Hammond is he's quite up there in terms of his evilness and in the hierarchy of the Absolute Justice League, which consists of what we would think of as Legion of Doom. And here we get more of the backstory between Jolene and Joe and Cameron Chase, and it's quite good. The dialogue's quite clear and crisp, and it's quite clear that they have some unresolved feelings for each other. And we get Joe it's clear that Joe is starting to piece together how she came across the Green Lantern power. She's starting to piece together some of what she thinks are possible rules or possible guidelines regarding her use of the power and the visions that she'd have of the Tomar Rao and what have you. And this Nemesis character, Hector Hammond, very clearly, I think Hector Hammond is cleaning up the board. He wants to eliminate he wants to eliminate anybody involved in the Evergreen incident, while at the same time finding out what they know. And of course, utilizing if they do acquire or have any power, he wants to obviously use them for his own resources, much like Dr. Thawne is over in the pages of Absolute Flash, how she utilizes the rogues for her own machinations. Hector Hammond wants the same thing. And what's very interesting here is that while Cameron Chase is talking to Joe, she actually has Joe take off the ring, and she puts on the Green Lantern ring herself and discovers that she has slightly enhanced powers, but it's clear that she can't use it. She doesn't have the powers that Joe has. So one thing that we know already, although we may have suspected it, but I think this more or less confirms it. I think that Joe's powers, her utilizing these Green Lantern powers, it's more than it's not the ring that has the power. It's Joe herself. It's imbued within Joe herself. But yet at the same time, there seems to be some temporary strength that if somebody else wears the ring, as Cameron Chase did, and she slammed a table, that clearly she's capable of maybe temporarily giving some powers, some enhanced strength to somebody else who wears the Green Lantern ring. But she quickly put it back on. And then subsequently, Nemesis shows up, disguised and as he reveals himself to be Goldface. Once again revealing, he shoots Joe with essentially gold bullets, just like in earlier issues when John Stewart just threw a gold-plated ring through the Green Lantern force field. It's quite clear that something as simple as the color gold seems to easily penetrate the Green Lantern spectrum. And that is a major, major flaw, a major weakness. It was surprising to me, shocking to me, how embarrassingly easy it was for Nemesis, disguised initially as John Stewart and then revealed himself to be Goldface, how easy he took out Joe just really by shooting her. And she's got all this Green Lantern energy around her, and it's completely useless against a guy with a golden gun. It just seems It just seems to be an astonishing weakness, much like, of course, like the color yellow was in the mainstream DC universe. But it just seems it's of particular note here. This issue ends on a definite cliffhanger. Joe does not look to be in a particularly good place, and one wonders if because. Remember that Hal Jordan is in the same apartment building right now in a different room with Joe. And I wonder, and he's got the black hand. And if he wakes up and he sees this, I suspect next issue is going to be Hal Jordan waking up. And I am quite certain that we still don't know what the weaknesses are of the gold, of the enlightened. We don't know the weaknesses of the red or the weaknesses of the black. We know that the green has a weakness to gold, but I'm thinking that probably all of them have some inherent weakness. What is it specifically? And so it might be interesting to see this stuff as it plays out. Al Ewing, to his credit, or perhaps to some of our dismay, he's not spoon-feeding us. He expects us to take our time and read this, and I'm glad I did. And there's a lot here. And it's just another example of why I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this Absolute Universe more when I'm taking the time to read it more and more. Maybe that's why I'm enjoying it so much. And because we're here on the ground floor, it's easier to get into it without necessarily having to know a bunch of continuity. So, but I really enjoyed this, and this definitely made my top 3 this week.
Did it make my top 3? Yeah, it did make my top 3, actually. All right, moving on. Next book did not make either of our top 5. It's JSA number 14, Year 1, Chapter 2, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Gavin Guidry, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Steve Wands. You know, I am enjoying this, but it's nothing that's, wholly original. We've had these stories of the JSA coming together before, so that's partly why it comes in at number 8 for me. Also, the art was fine, but there was nothing that stood out about it. But, I did enjoy seeing these heroes in their early days before they've come together as a team. They're kind of aware of each other and what have you. So I like the characterization that Jeff Lemire is giving us. But think Rocky mentioned last time that having this year one story be the first arc in this new JSA volume probably would have been better. And I wasn't sure that I agreed, but after reading the second chapter, I've kind of come around to that way of thinking as well. So, what are your thoughts on this one, Rocky?
I was really glad to see Hippolyta show up here. Hippolyta Wonder Woman. That's great. I'm enjoying this. I appreciate the Gavin Guidry art. I will say in parts the Gavin Guidry art seems a little bit wooden in spots, a little bit not as fluid as I would like. But there's a clean crispness to it that I also appreciate. So I actually the full package I kind of enjoyed. I guess the gist of it is, and this is no fault of the writer or the artist at all. It's just I feel that it's probably because I'm just a long time reader, but I feel that I've had these stories before. I feel I've read these stories before, and it's almost like I have mixed feelings about Mark Waid's World's Finest at times and his Action Comics. He's sort of rewriting Silver Age stories, which is really cool. He's rewriting them for the modern age, but at the same time, I feel like I've read them already. Only because I'm such a long time reader. I've read so many of those types of stories. I'm not really interested in reading updated versions of them as much as I normally would be if I was 20, 30 years ago. And so that's another reason why I'm probably enjoying the Absolute title so much. They're much more Black Label-ish. They're much more hardcore. They just possess a hardcore, fantastical, crazy, over-the-top nonsense at times that I absolutely love and put a smile on my face. And, it goes back
to what I was saying before about you can be surprised. There's nothing that's going to happen in this JSA year one story that's really going to surprise. How can it, right? Because I mean, it's similar to one of the problems. As much as I'm enjoying the Gotham Academy year one, I feel like I'm kind of have an advantage over most people because I haven't read any Gotham Academy at all before, right? You can't do anything in Gotham Academy year one that's, that changes the characters fundamentally because it's a prequel and they have to be, certain characters when the stories that have already been written start, it's the same thing that any prequel, the same challenge that any prequel has. So it's definitely a little bit of a challenge. There is a really cool variant cover for this issue, though, by David Talaski. It has very much of a Norman Rockwell type feel with Alan Scott and Jay Garrick kind of sitting back. I mean, ultimately, they're probably kicking back with a beer, but of course, DC learned that lesson with Action Comics back in the day, where they had to recall it when Pa Kent and Clark were drinking beers and they changed it to like root beer or whatever. So yeah, it says something cola, but really they're cheersing and they'd be beer. So anyway, let's move on. Next book is in both of our top 5. It's in my top 3 actually. Cheetah and Cheshire rob the Justice League, chapter 5. Greg Rucka writer, Nicola Scott on art, Annette Kwok on colors, and Troy Petrie on letters. I'll let you go first this time, Rocky. What'd you think?
I thought this was fantastic. This is my favorite issue so far. Somehow Greg Rucka managed to pull off what that I was actually fearful and doubtful that he was going to pull off. I was actually a little bit worried in the previous 4 issues that, geez, I thought to myself, maybe I got to go back and reread the previous 4 issues because this had sort of like an Ocean's 11 sort of feel. They were going to, pull off all this stuff, and maybe I got to remind myself of what happened in the previous 4 issues, or I'm going to be lost. And not at all. Somehow, there is a lot of little things that all of the characters do in this issue, and it's fantastic. The way that Greg Rucka sort of scripted how they rip. I mean, how is this very eclectic, odd group consisting of a bunch of 3 or 4 teenagers, Cheshire, the Cheetah. I mean, these are wild cards to say the least. Leon Harper, of all people, who, she's got her skills, but being a thief isn't necessarily, I would have thought, being one of them. There's a big difference between robbing the streets of Gotham versus robbing, between as opposed to robbing the Justice League satellite. But somehow it's hilarious the way they plan everything, smuggling, like delivering rats onto the Justice League satellite, letting the rats go, throwing the sensors all array, having a rogue satellite crash into another satellite, creating a sort of what they call the Kessler effect, which is where, you create a possibility of we have so many satellites surrounding the Earth that if they crash into each other, you could literally create a dangerous zone where it's impossible to avoid a satellite or a remnant of a satellite. All this stuff comes to a head, forcing the Justice League, who, with apologies to Wonder Woman, I wonder if they would ever make Batman. I wonder if Batman would have failed so miserably as Wonder Woman did in being unable to prevent the theft of a Justice League artifact, or the what do they call it? The power case,
power bank.
The power bank, right? But I thought this was excellent. They were in control of it. It was clear that Cheshire and Cheetah had planned. They had planned the fact that they had a fight or an argument before they pulled off the heist. That was all something to sort of lead to basically even trick Leon and to trick the rest of the crew that they wanted them to believe that their fallout was real. And everybody stepped up to the plate to pull this off. And they did so in such a way that nobody was hurt, nobody was killed. They were just like professionals, like professional thieves. I mean, the best thieves are the ones that don't kill anybody. I mean, not that I want to encourage criminal activity, but I got to say that theft at the Louvre, those thieves at the Louvre managing to pull off, that's pretty cool stuff. I mean, I don't think they killed anybody, did they? I think they.
No, they didn't. But they also all got caught. Got caught.
Well, yeah, and arguably you could argue that even Cheshire and crew here get caught. They managed to escape the satellite, right. So the whole Justice League is going to be looking for them. So I don't know how they think they're going to. I don't know how on God's green earth they think they're going to get away with this, especially at the end where they escaped the Justice League satellite, but it's not like they've escaped the Justice League, really. And they end up in the arms of Black Adam and his crew, who, of course, Clarion the Witch Boy looks like may have potentially betrayed the team. We knew that from the end of the first issue. So, anyways, there are so many moving parts here, but it's very entertaining. This is the comic book version with some degree of complexity as to how they pulled this off. Full props to Greg Rucka. I thought this possessed a hell of a lot of verisimilitude, and of course, how the hell would I know? It's not like I know the layout of the Justice League satellite, but somehow the way he scripted this with the amazing art of Nicola Scott, it just really, really worked for me. And this is definitely absolutely deserving of being in my top 3 this week. Very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, I love the whole idea, because you hear about this, they're going to rob the satellite. We don't know everything about the satellite, but we know quite a bit. Question as head of security, Renee Montoya and what have you. And yeah, you're like, how are they going to pull this off? You have a Red Tornado there that's running all the systems or whatever. And yeah, last issue when the rats were there, you're like, okay, the rats are going to be running around. They're going to fool the sensors and whatever. But, how are they really going to do it? So they set these rats up to kind of explode, like one after the other after the other. So they think that Red Tornado is malfunctioning because he's like, okay, I sense 150 life forms. Nope, 149, 148, 147. I mean, why would Wonder Woman or Renee Montoya think that rats were exploding, and that's what instead they think something must be wrong with Red Tornado. He can't get a fix on how many life signs are actually on the satellite at any one time. Like, it's just brilliant idea from Greg Rucka, and. The tropes of you think you know what's going on, but you don't really know what's going on. You mentioned the whole idea of the fallout between Cheetah and the rest of the team, supposedly, and then come to find out, it's all a ruse. Again, it's very cliched, but there's a reason that these kind of ideas, these kind of tropes exist when you're telling heist stories, because they work. And the whole idea of, Clarion the Witch Boy has has betrayed the team or whatever. I'm not buying that necessarily either. I think that might be
Yeah.
a trope as well. I said it at first when when we first had it. It first appeared that he was betraying the team. I was like, I don't know if I'm buying it, and I still kind of think the same thing. Like, you mentioned that yes, they escaped, but did they actually get away with it? Because the rest of the league is going to be, the Justice League is aware. They saw who was there. They're going to be coming after them and what have you. But why would they be coming after them if they think that Black Adam is the one that actually has the power bank, right? So
Yeah.
if they give a fake to Black Adam or some kind of other thing, and then
Yeah.
they make their escape, like who knows?
Misdirection. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
100% think that what Clarion did, he was told to do by Lady Shiva or Cheetah or both. So again, it just adds to this idea that there's so many twists, there's so many turns, you're never quite sure what's going on, and even beyond that, in terms of the greater plot, this particular issue, the way that it was paced, like you mentioned Ocean's 11, and when it comes to those, kind of the climax of these type of stories, whether they be TV or film or whatever, there's a lot of moving parts and everything has to come together. But when you're watching that part, it jumps between this part of the team's doing this and this part of the team's doing that or whatever, and it's very quickly paced. It has kind of this, pace that we've come to expect, where it's very deliberate. It's like one thing after another, after another, after another, like dominoes falling, right? This this particular issue had that. It had it, and it did it very well, jumping between particular parts of the team, whether it be what's Cheetah up to, what's Cheshire up to. Oh, let's jump over to the Justice League, and what are they up to? Red Tornado's trying to figure it out. Questions trying to figure out. Oh, now Batman gets an alert. Bruce is wants to know, hey, what's going on? Why is Red Tornado shut down or whatever? And then them all coming to the realization kind of at the same time. Wonder Woman, Batman, and Renee Montoya all at the same time, and the way it's drawn by Nicola Scott works really. Oh, we're being robbed! Like it all clicks, at the same time for them. Just brilliantly done, because it's one thing to craft a good story and have it work, and like you said, it's got that degree of verisimilitude where we're buying it. Because again, when I first heard about this, especially with it being Cheetah and Cheshire, you go, how are they going to be able to do this? They just don't have the raw power. You think, okay, if somebody's going to steal something from the Justice League satellite, they got a dark side level power. You just walk in there and you can't be stopped, right? You just walk in there, you smash everything, you take what you want. But to do it with stealth and subterfuge and all these moving parts, so that's one thing, to be able to craft that story and make it believable, like it could actually happen. It's another thing to then execute it in a comic, which is sequential art, as opposed to one of the reasons I love heist films is you have that, it's live action, so you can give those moments where you cut to this part or cut to that part or whatever, and it doesn't even necessarily need dialogue, because it can work. You can show so much more when you're talking live action. When you're talking sequential art, that's really hard to pull off, and it's why heist stories in comics are so much more difficult, I think, to do. But at the same time, when they're done well, I think they pay off really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case with this particular story so far. We'll see. Hopefully they can stick the landing as well. All right, up next, excuse me, another book that's not in either of our top five, but it's Gotham Academy First Year, issue number 3, story by Brendan Fletcher, Becky Cloonan, and Carl Kerschel. Script by Brendan Fletcher, art by Marco Ferrari, colors by Ava Dela Cruz, letters by Steve Wands. I enjoy this well enough. Again, I talked about earlier, I'm not really that familiar with Gotham Academy from before this. This comes in at number 6 for me. So I did enjoy it. I do enjoy the art. These characters are a little bit of a breath of fresh air for me. However, one thing that does pull it back is what I was talking about before. There's not going to be any huge revelations or any huge, change in character status or what have you, because these characters need to be where they are when the first volume of Gotham Academy starts. Because again, we've already gotten that story. So I do feel like that limits this a little bit. And you almost wish that, you don't know, because obviously you don't know that Gotham Academy is going to be so successful, but you almost wish that they had started with this as the first of the stories. So Anyway, anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, this is very much building on I think the popularity of the Netflix show, or is it on Amazon, Wednesday, the Addams Family, that series. It's very much so. We have the Silverlock. What is it, Julie Silverlock?
Olive.
Olive Silverlock and Kyle Mazaguchi, whatever, their boyfriend, girlfriend. They continue to fall in love in this series. In this issue, they're going to the prom together. She's Juliet in a Romeo and Juliet play. Meanwhile, she continues to have, she wants to, she's got a dysfunctional relationship with her mother. She almost died in a fire that Batman rescued her from. Bruce Wayne has put her in this school, even though, because normally she would not be able to afford to go there, but Bruce Wayne is paying her tuition. And Batman is arguably, we think Batman might be one of the guys behind the scenes sort of protecting Alicia from what is happening to her. Meanwhile, she has a lot of guilt because she feels she could have saved her mother. And it ends with there's a lot of explosions which took place at Arkham, which arguably may have killed her mother at the end. So there's a lot of character work here, and you don't need to read anything previous to Gotham Academy. 3 issues in, if you just read from issue 1, this is a really good story. I would think that this is, not that I've read a lot of manga, but from what I hear, manga is very strongly a strong character focus. I think this is really good. There's a lot of great character work here, and I think this is this just came in at number 6 for me, and it was only because of obviously my top 5. This could have been in my top 5. It could have been, but anyways, I thought this was really well done. Great character work. It's easy to get into. I think it's cheap to get into. It's economic. If you want to, for a good Christmas present for a young teenager or whatever, buy him the first 3 issues of this for Christmas, or even the trade when it comes out, because I think this is a really good series. And by the way, the cover A is awesome. I don't know who does the Kerschel cover there for cover A. It just looks amazing.
Yeah, I just missed my top 5 as well. Definitely good. All right, up next we have Batman number 4, Drop the Smoke. Matt Fraction, the writer, Jorge Jiminez on art, Tamiya Mori on colors, Clayton Cowell with Jorge Jiminez on the letters. We get the Taurus on the cover, or the Minotaur rather, who's head of the Taurus. We kind of get the explanation of who they are and how they're running crime in Gotham. So that's pretty interesting. So speculator alert, him showing up on the cover. You probably want to pick that one up. This came in, I think, at number 4 for me is where I rated it. But again, like in a stronger week, I don't think it quite made my top 5 because it felt like a lot of setup. And as much as I enjoyed the Jorge Jimenez art, I thought the coloring in this issue was a little bit off. Everything looked a little bit like sort of whited out in a way. The depth of color just wasn't there for me. So again, I just thought this was okay. We get a different version of Anarchy as well, so we'll see how that all plays out. But the concept of it's not wholly original. The concept of somebody organizing all the families, the crime families of Gotham, and being the one calling the shots isn't wholly original either. But I think Matt Fraction does enough with the character of the Minotaur to make it interesting. Plus the fact that he has 7 fingers on each hand, which is just creepy as hell, was a nice touch. So overall, I'm still enjoying the new version or the new volume of Batman, but this might be the weakest issue so far, just because again, not a lot happened here other than kind of the introduction of Taurus and kind of an explanation of what's going on with Batman. What's going on in Gotham, and Batman basically becoming aware of this character, the Minotaur. Batman gets that information by interrogating Anarchy. So we'll see how that all plays out in subsequent issues. Again, you have to have these kind of transitional issues where it's a little bit of setup, because if everything is always dialed up to 9, then there's no contrast. So Just an okay issue of Batman for me this time. What in your top 5 as well? So what do you think?
It is, yeah, just at number 5. I mean, just outside my top 5. It came in at number 5 for me. Gotham Academy came in at number 6. I could have put Gotham Academy even slightly ahead of this one, if I'm honest, but because it's Batman. Batman has seniority, I guess. But in any event, I thought it was a little bit interesting that Batman, in a rare moment of not being a particularly good detective, Batman didn't actually know what was going on. He had to find out from Anarchy that there's a new guy in town named the Minotaur. And incidentally, the reason why he's got 7 fingers, so the number 7, it relates to the Tor relates to a prime knot that has 7 interconnected knots that together are unbreakable, and the seven forces, of course, that he has consists of essentially 7 kingpin, one of which is the Penguin. It's really basically I'm not that impressed with the Minotaur at this point. He just sounds like a guy that has a deformity in his hand. He's got like 7 fingers, and he's a banker. Well, how does a banker get so influential? I mean, most mobsters, if the banker doesn't do what they say, you kill the banker and you go to, blackmailing a bank manager is quite easy. So I need to see and read a lot more. Matt Fraction has to do a lot more to get me to take notice of this Minotaur, because he doesn't seem to be particularly impressive. He's got the central conceit of having 7 fingers. Okay, whoop-de-doo. And he's got an odd helmet. What's with the helmet and why, other than hold it, why would you want to protect your identity? What's the big deal? Not only that, when did the Penguin of all people start hanging out with this crowd? And it just seemed like sort of, I feel a little bit out of left field from this, but that's fine. That's fine. Every writer who approaches Batman in Gotham does their own thing, and I'm more than prepared to give Matt Fraction all the time he wants, because I'm enjoying this story so far. And the part of the story that I'm enjoying surprisingly more than maybe I even should is that I really like this doctor character. There's a little bit of romance going on, a lot of flirtation. Matt Fraction does a pretty good job scripting this. Dr. Annika Zeller, Bruce Wayne, Batman as Bruce Wayne stops by and sees Annika Zeller. He's got questions. He's got questions to her about, she's got her own ideas about how to use pharmaceuticals in terms of how to help the inmates of Arkham, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of really great dialogue, flirtation going on. I actually like the color work. You notice that you're right, it is a little bit lighter, but I think it works and it really fits the mood. So I was pulled into this issue, and I think it's because I've always liked the subtle hint of romance in superhero comics. And when it comes to Bruce Wayne, it's funny how, I like the central conceit that Bruce Wayne really is, even when he's not even intending to be, he always has, he is very, I think Bruce Wayne is not always an act. I don't care if you're Batman or not. I think Bruce Wayne, how can you not enjoy flirting a little bit with women, beautiful women? And this is Bruce Wayne having fun here with Dr. Zeller. I think he likes her. I think she's actually likable, and it's a great scene because she doesn't even know that Bruce Wayne is behind her, and she's talking to Bruce Wayne and tells him to talk to the Batman teddy bear that she has, and because that's how she thinks, and focus on the Batman, ask the teddy bear, ask the Batman teddy bear the question, and then I'll try to answer it. That's how I work, and it was just kind of a funny scene, offbeat scene, and it worked. And of course, in conjunction with the rest of the issue, I thought it worked really well. The color work was great. I also like how he takes the time, Matt Fraction. He sets the scene up in each individual panel of Little Tokyo, Alleytown, Wolf Hill, the Bowery. He's establishing the different areas of Gotham, sort of partitioning it for the reader to sort of set up the 7 that make up the Torah, and of course the symbolism with the 7 fingers leading to the Minotaur. So it's all set up here in a very organized and well-paced way that it was really impossible for me not to be pulled into this. This was just a very well-written and well-drawn comic book, and definitely worthy of the top 5.
Yeah, the only thing I'll kind of mention, you say, well, if the banker's not doing what you want, you kill him, you go. It sounds like this Minotaur, it doesn't exactly work that way with this Minotaur because he's got their money, but they have no access to it. He's the only one that can get them access to their own money.
Fair enough.
So
that's true. Yeah.
If that's the case, it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
He's got ultimate leverage.
Yeah.
And he must, have
Yeah.
clearly a very smart guy or whatever. And it's like, okay, they kill him and then their money is locked away forever. Or
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can't
He's
just do
playing
it.
a dangerous game. He's playing a dangerous
Oh
game
yeah.
because, I mean, who?
Yeah.
You don't want to piss off the Penguin, especially. I mean,
Well, what it does is in a way, it leaves him vulnerable because, I mean, Batman can get one of these, whether it be Penguin or somebody else, to double cross the Minotaur by, basically saying, "Hey, you give me what I need to take the Minotaur down, and I'll be sure that you get your money." If you're going to trust Batman, if you're one of those, he's not Superman. Batman will lie to get what he wants. So, anyway, yeah, interesting character. Definitely pick it up. I expect that we might see more of the Minotaur in the future. So, if you think he's going to be a consequential character, I mean, you never know, right? Like, remember how hot the first appearance of Punchline was at one point? And I think you could probably pick that book up for $1 now. So, which makes sense because that character sucks. So maybe the Minotaur will be a little more interesting. Anyway, another book that's in both of our top 5. And I can't believe, I sound like a broken record when I talk about this book. I can't believe we're up to issue 39 of a Poison Ivy book. Written by G. Willow Wilson, Marcio Takara is the artist, Arif Prianto on letters. Hassan Otzman Elhau handles the letters. Arif Prianto on colors. I think I might have said Arif was on letter. But I knew this would be in your top 5 because we get a hot sex scene between, or intimate scene between Poison Ivy and Janet from HR.
Oh yeah.
The reason this makes my top, I mean, other than just like technically, this is just a great con. Like G. Willow Wilson continues to make the story that she's telling very well paced. She continues to make these characters compelling. She continues to balance the broader story of what she's trying to tell with the intimacy of characterization, and we've come to care about these characters, what have you. So it's fantastic. But in terms of just the cool ideas, right? Yes, we get some really cool possible character drama. As I mentioned, the intimate scene between Poison Ivy and Janet from HR, which Harley Quinn then stumbles upon, and she's, I'm not about that. Let's talk about this or whatever. But it could come back later. It's planting seeds for possible conflict in the future, which I really enjoy. But more than that, we know that Janet from HR had been poisoned by the Bog Witch and what have you, and she was sort of caught in the middle between the Bog Witch and Poison Ivy, and Poison Ivy sort of felt betrayed by her, but then realized that she had put Janet in kind of a no-win situation and had neglected her or what have you. But this whole idea of Poison Ivy at the beginning, talking about a venom versus like you can't make an anti-venom without the actual venom, so you need a little bit of the poison to then make the cure or whatever. And so she comes up with this idea that she's gonna like cook the Bog Witch. She's gonna like make a meal out of the Bog Witch. She like chops her up and she eats the Bog Witch along with Janet from HR, and it appears to work. Janet from HR, appears to be cured. I mean, she starts feeling better or what have you. And obviously this is going to have long-term consequences. And I keep going back to what G. Willow had told me when I talked to her at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of years ago, where she was like, I didn't even plan, like Janet from HR was planned on being just a throwaway character, which is why she didn't even give her a last name, just called her Janet from HR. But yet she's crafted such a long-term supporting character that has had an evolution and has had her own story arc and what have you, and now possibly is going to have powers because she's eaten this, Bog Witch elemental, what have you. And so beyond being just cured, she has a little bit of a kind of a euphoric a reaction to eating it, as does Poison Ivy, which then leads to their intimacy and what have you. So it's just really well done. In terms of advancing the big plot forward, this really doesn't do it. It doesn't advance it much at all. You just have Peter Undine, who's sort of left behind with the movement, the resistance that are the Green Knights, and they're not sure where Poison Ivy's gone, and they hear this rumor that the Gotham City Police Department's going to be coming back to Marshview, so they need to leave so they don't get caught. So they just kind of run off into the woods. They're worried about getting lost or just emerging somewhere else. I mean, we know these woods have the ability to teleport you thousands of miles, and so Undine's like, I know who can possibly talk some sense into Ivy and kind of get her back to paying attention to things she needs to pay attention to. And that's where he goes and gets Harley Quinn, and then Harley Quinn stumbles upon Poison Ivy and Janet from HR and their kind of afterglow bliss. So again, planting seeds for drama in the future, but also a hint that we're going to get back to the main plot and move that forward with more momentum in the next issue. But I'm perfectly fine with putting that on the back burner to get some character work and to resolve the plot thread of Janet from HR being sick and Poison Ivy actually caring enough after being called out last issue to do something to be proactive in trying to heal Janet from HR. So it's just another example of an issue that's got really good balance of what G. Willow Wilson is doing with great character work, a big overarching story, and ultimately, you could even talk about the story level that's even above that, which is what we talked about like all the way back when we started discussing the very first issue of this series, when it was supposed to be just a 6-issue and then became a 12 and then became an ongoing. And is Poison Ivy a villain or a hero? Who is Poison Ivy now? And that's really the journey that Pamela Isley has been on since the beginning. She's still not sure of her identity. And, you could make the argument, I say it all the time, well, when we get a book that just goes on and on and on and keeps asking the same question and we don't get resolution, that can kind of get old. We saw it in Teen Titans Academy. We've seen it in various other titles. Amazing Spider-Man has been guilty of it a lot lately. But the thing about what G. Willow Wilson has done, and it speaks to how well and how deftly she's crafted this character, is the reason that Pamela Isley hasn't decided or been able to discover if she's a hero or a villain yet is because she's still trying to figure it out herself because of the situations that G. Willow Wilson has put her in. She's been pulled in all these different directions. She hasn't had a moment to herself to really kind of figure out, what she needs to do, what comes next. Am I a hero? Am I a villain? I'm stuck between this, as a pawn between these, very ancient, kind of beings, if you will, the power of the green versus the power of the gray, the power of the natural world versus the power of the fungus and what have you. So it's really interesting that in a lot of ways, Poison Ivy has sort of been a passenger in a lot of ways in her own book because of the situations that G. Willow Wilson continues to put her in. And, I keep going back to the fundamental change and complexity that G. Willow Wilson has added to Poison Ivy as a character. And I can't help, I'll mention it again. The only thing I compare it to is what Alan Moore did to Swamp Thing. There's no way that Poison Ivy can go back to being that two-dimensional, I'm going to show up in a Batman book and I'm going to be poisoning all the champagne at a party for some, corporate entity that's, poisoning the earth or whatever. Like she's moved so far beyond that, that sort of two-dimensional villain that is just trying to poison people because they're harming the earth. And that's a real credit to G. Willow Wilson as a creator. So what are your thoughts on this issue, Rocky?
I think that for me, so it's interesting that was your focus when you talked about this. My focus is more specifically on Janet from HR. What really stands out in this issue is, for me, all the complaining I've done, call it ranting, call it whatever it is, about Harley Quinn, on just how I think DC editorial has mishandled Harley Quinn. This reinforces for the 100th time with this series why Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are a terrible couple, why they do not belong together. As much as you don't like seeing Batman with Catwoman, I don't like seeing Harley with... I don't see how Harley and Poison Ivy, they have nothing in common. And in fact, Janet from HR is such a better partner for Poison Ivy. At one point in this, at one point, while they're having their conversation, Janet from HR says to Pamela Isley, she says, "I wouldn't go around murdering people in horrible ways or hurting people I call my friends," which is exactly what Poison Ivy has done at different times. She's done exactly that. Janet from HR is basically us, the reader. We really are speaking through Janet from HR. We're saying the quiet part out loud. Janet has gone through periods of time throughout this series where she's been terrified to talk and say anything wrong to Poison Ivy for very good reason. She was genuinely afraid she was going to be killed. And that her fear was genuine. And Poison Ivy knows that. But Janet from HR can say that quiet part out loud now, and it has an impact on Pamela, on Poison Ivy. And it's sort of, and it leads to them getting closer, and there's a bond there. Now, I don't mean to pick on, and I'm going off on a little bit of a rant here, but you're never, ever going to have Harley have the self-awareness to say to Pamela Isley, maybe you should stop killing people, Pam. Maybe you should stop doing that. No. They're toxic. They're toxic. They're wrong for each other. Poison Ivy but they're so. Harley Quinn is so inconsistently written. She's written, every writer that writes Harley writes her in 10,000 different ways, that you end up with a bunch of schizophrenic, inconsistent interpretations of Harley, and in particular her relationship with Poison Ivy. Anyways, I don't want to digress too much. I just want to say that this possesses, you mentioned it, this to me is almost Black Label in its genuine, heartfelt, deeply believable evolution of Pamela Isley's character, going from somebody who was genuinely screwed up and an eco-terrorist to someone who's literally has had epiphanies of thought and has become almost like a god in and of herself, and being someone who has to make decisions and be an arbiter between the green and the gray, and being able to make that call, and while at the same time finding love. But in order to do that, she's had to go within and find the capacity to love. And we had that wonderful annual reviewed where there seems to be a history with the green, and that this uncomfortable relationship between the green and the gray, which is kind of out of necessity, where sometimes the green and the gray, they're always going to be in conflict. So too, does it represent Poison Ivy herself, because there's always this conflict between being the type of loving person that Janet from HR can fall in love with, and being the psychopath that a crazy bitch named Harley is in love with. And J. Willow Wilson manages to create that balance in a way that I find is actually workable. And also, I just want to give a quick shout out here that even the way J. Willow Wilson portrays Harley is better than the way Harley is being written in her own comic book. And that's no put down to Elliot Callan. It's just that these are very different interpretations of the character, quite frankly. And, I wish DC would be a little bit more consistent. I wish J. Willow Wilson would write Harley. I would love to give her 50 issues on Harley set in the actual universe that she's writing Poison Ivy, because I think that would be something beautiful. If DC is serious about putting Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn together, have J. Willow Wilson write that story. Because at least then I know it can be believable, because somehow she made me believe that Poison Ivy might even be a good person. And that's unbelievable. But great stuff.
I don't disagree with you that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the relationship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. However, I will say that sometimes relationships are purely based on physical attraction. So you're right; they have nothing in common. It doesn't really seem like whatever, but it could just be some like they're just physically attracted to each other. So,
but I would just add to that, though, if I may, I would just add to your comment, though, that a lot of times when Harley and Poison Ivy are depicted in various iterations, they are genuinely in love. I mean, they're doing like the girls' night out there, and they're sort of, it's just the way that DC's portraying. There's so many different iterations of it. I think DC takes the relationship far more seriously, and I don't think it possesses verisimilitude if we're actually going to look at the fact that these are two psychopathic women, and maybe Poison Ivy now is coming out of her. Maybe she's not a psychopath after all, just misunderstood. I've never felt that way about Harley, but I can be corrected.
Yeah, I mean, I again, for the record, I agree with you. I don't care for the relationship. I don't think they belong together, whatever. But yeah, we don't make those decisions. So it is what it is. All right, up next we have Adventures of Superman, Book of L #4. This is from Phillip Kennedy Johnson as writer, Scott Godlewski on art, colors by Alex Squarmus and Matt Hearns, letters by Dave Sharp. Doesn't make my top 5, but I am enjoying what Phillip Kennedy Johnson's doing. If you feel a little bit lost when you're reading this, I definitely recommend, be sure you listen to my interview with Phillip Kennedy Johnson. It's coming up on the 12 Days of the Comic Source. This comes in at number 7 for me. Mostly where this book shines is where a lot of Phillip Kennedy Johnson books shine, and that's in kind of the bigger story, the lore that he's building, the world building, and what have you. I think it all works really, really well. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. What are your thoughts, Rocky?
He's definitely world building here. It's definitely in its own universe. I find it a little bit more of a concerted read. But if you like PKJ's run during his Superman run in Action Comics, this is definitely, it's a continuation of that. He's looking for his adopted children, Osul and Ortho, and they're basically lost in this sort of like futuristic Earth, which was on Future's End. And there's a lot of good character work here, and these are new characters, which even with PKJ now signing that exclusive with Marvel, you never know the future of the House of L. Even once he's completed this series, it might still very well have a future in the DC universe, because DC always seems to inevitably return to Elseworlds tales that have a rich mythology, and clearly this one does.
Yeah, again, listen to my interview with him. We talked about this quite a bit. All right, up next, probably the book a lot of you have been waiting for us to chat about, DCKO Batman Night Fight number 2. Joshua Williamson, the writer, Dan Mora on artist, Triona Farrell on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. This comes in at number 9 for me. I discovered kind of in reading this second issue of it, I really am not enjoying this book very much.
Yeah.
It feels like, okay, here's a story that's been told before. It's Batman having to fight his surrogate family. Been there, done that. I don't really feel like this is inviting anything new to the story, even though it is in context of the obviously the DCKO event. So I'm still kind of waiting for this to click for me in a lot of ways. And yeah, I'll have to wait and see, when it's all said and done, how I feel about it overall. But it's just okay. I will say that the Dan Mora art is absolutely fantastic. But this is not, this is just not anything new. It feels kind of derivative in a lot of ways. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
This is an utter waste of Dan Mora's art. Wasted on this series. Like what this is such a this is just such a, who cares? Like and literally it's, and then the plot line, it's so obvious, some desperate attempt to get Batman again to fight his Bat family that we've seen 1,000 times in different iterations. We're seeing it again. And then Batman even knows that's what he's doing. And apparently when Batman was killed by the Joker, because Batman tried to cheat, and because he created a device for himself that should he ever become incapacitated during the tournament, it would return him home. Well, apparently the Heart of Apocalypse wanted to punish him because it considered Batman having cheated by doing so, which I'm going to come back to in future reviews when we talk about the various fights that occur, because there's other cheating that occurs that apparently isn't cheating, but this constitutes cheating apparently. Inconsistency on the rules. This is one of my many criticisms of the fights that we're going to eventually be talking about in the ongoing months. But in any event, I just thought this also came in at number 9 for me too. The art's fantastic, but wow, just really the story is very predictable, and we're just going to watch Batman literally be dragged. He's literally going to be jumping from first he's going to kill, first he takes out Nightwing, and then he's going to be fighting Jason Todd, and then he's going to be fighting Tam. He's just going to be fighting each one in a different universe or in a different creation construct of the Heart of Apocalypse. And at the
end of the day, I read this and I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But there's nothing new. There's nothing new. Just another excuse for Batman to have to fight his own sons and daughters. Like,
there's nothing. Exactly. There's nothing at stake. I mean, have him fight somebody else that's more powered up and different. And these aren't actually them. They're not. These aren't actually them he's fighting. So it's a complete waste. Like it's just nothing but a money grab. And I realize they want I realize with the trade dress night fight and everything else, it's just that it's so obviously a cash grab, as opposed to I thought with DCKO, I actually thought even outside all the billion covers, I thought there was actually some genuinely new or different sort of ideas. And then we get this night fight, which is just ironically, and I'm going to say, frankly, sadly, this is probably going to sell a lot. I want it to be successful, but this is exactly the type, I don't want to reward this type of lack of creative thinking, if I'm brutally honest. Fantastic art by Dan Mora, man. You're fantastic. You're an amazing artist. And Joshua Williamson, yeah, you've taken a derivative story and you've given a derivative idea and you've given us a derivative story. Good job. But, I don't know, it's an underhanded compliment or an overhanded insult. I don't know what that is, but whatever.
It's got its problems, everybody. It's got its problems. Of that, there's no doubt. All right. Well, if that's not the book that you were waiting for us to talk about, then you're probably waiting for us to talk about the last book we're going to talk about in detail, which is DCKO Superman versus Captain Atom #1, also written by Joshua Williamson, art by Sean Isaacs. Trish Mulvihill handles the colors for the majority of the issue, with an assist from Hi-Fi, and then Dave Sharp is on the letters. Now, this came in my top 5, but so reluctantly. So, and I had a lot of problems with it. So I'm going to let you go first, because I'm kind of curious.
Oh, boy.
It's one of those situations, kind of similar to what you were talking about last time, where you put DC KO, the Spine Series issue 2 in your top, just based on the fact that it's so consequential.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel the way, about this. I sort of have to put it in there, but in a stronger week, this would not have made my top 5. So anyway, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I actually, I got you and I have the. I'm gonna be very careful with my choice of words here, because we've read some. I want to acknowledge that I have read some of the future battles.
I haven't read any.
I have, and so, but I'm not going. There's going to be zero spoilers. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you zero spoilers, and there's going to be no hints of spoilers. I will say though that again, no spoilers. What I actually think, for what it's worth, I think this is. I will say that this is probably one of the better ones, and I will say that at least. I loved that with Captain Atom fighting Superman. Remember what happened in DCKO #2? Captain Atom took out Supergirl. Supergirl had one of the Ida 16 items, and he took Supergirl out, and apparently that really pissed off Superman. Through 90% of this particular comic of Captain Atom versus Superman, I'm going to full bore. I'm 100% on Captain Atom's side. Captain Atom, he understands the assignment. The job is to win and to be merciless, and to take out the opponent, and the opponent happens to be Superman. So naturally, you're going to do that. And as terrible as it sounds, sorry, Superman, I'm going to kill you, and you have to kill me. By the way, Superman kills Captain Atom here. So, he kills Captain Atom. Of course, good God, could you have enough? What's frustrating is Joshua Williamson, the writer. Joshua, for God's sakes, how many times do you have to have Superman apologize for killing somebody, or justify, or the preachiness and this idea of, what's frustrating about this is at no point in this fight was Superman punished for showing all this mercy and giving these speeches and everything else. And I wish, this is where I sort of misunderstood the rules of the tournament. Because I understood the rules of the tournament, and I'm going to clarify this. I understood the rules of the tournament that, well, in fact, you're going to be rewarded if you show no mercy. That, you get. Scott Snyder even said, that if you're going to show mercy, or if I got the impression that if you're going to show any kind of mercy, and if you're going to do any kind of good, you're going to get punished by the Omega. 100% not true. Simply not true. At least not in this fight. Sorry, I can see. Superman. And the other rule is you can at the beginning of a fight, it's the best out of 3 rounds. So it's the best out of 3 rounds, so it's very much like a video game. The Heart of Apocalypse, actually talks, seems to talk and narrate and at different points and actually says, it almost sounds like a video game. And you have a big KO appear when Superman loses the first time. Superman loses and then wins in the end. Surprise, surprise, Superman wins. And I thought, in my view, my preconception of this, I thought there was way too much talking. Way too much talking. I don't need the moralizing Superman. I wish that Superman would have been punished and suffered more for all his yapping. I wish Captain Adam, who was right in my mind and showed the requisite amount of lack of mercy. The way he took out Superman in the first fight, taking Superman out, basically vaporizing him with red sun and kryptonite radiation, that was merciless and absolutely brutal and fantastic. That's what I expect. That's what I expect. I love seeing that. I don't like the fact that the only way Superman could defeat Captain Adam was by assuming an iteration of the 853rd century version of Superman. I don't like the fact that Adam assumed the iteration of the Monarch, and then Captain Adam tries to cheat at the end by combining all his iterations into one. And for some reason, that's cheating. I don't know why that would be cheating. I would have thought cheating. Isn't that something that the Heart of Apocalypse would want, would love? Isn't that something that Darkseid would do? Geez, would Darkseid cheat? Well, of course he would. But apparently you can't do that. And so Captain Adam is punished at the end for cheating. And so Superman takes advantage of that. And the only reason Captain Adam loses this tournament, the only reason he loses is because of a Deus Ex Machina. Because the iteration that Captain Adam forms at the end, somehow, out of the blue, for reasons which are completely unexplained, somehow Superman turns into this gold version of himself and says, "You made a mistake, Captain, but you're too corrupted to see the heart to see it. Somehow you combined our powers." Really? So in other words, it was through Captain Adam's mistake that Superman became powered up. And Superman accuses him of being too corrupt to see it. The whole point, I thought, was if you're going to become more corrupt, you become more powerful, and that you're more likely to win, and you're more likely to be rewarded. But my interpretation is wrong. So in any event, Superman wins, but I want to make the following comment. This is how I understand this tournament now, in my view, and I'm going to refer back to absolute evil. You know how in the absolute universe, it's infused with omega particles. And so in the absolute universe, evil has a slight edge over good. And you know how in absolute evil, the Hawkman character became corrupted. He eventually was bought. He was bought off, and he became corrupted, and he helped eliminate all the other heroes of the JSA. And because he's more prone to corruption. That's really how I see this now. That it is possible to maintain your goodness and win these fights. It is. You just got to resist the omega particle. You're not punished. You're not punished for doing good. You're not punished for being moral. You're not punished for taking the higher ground. It's just harder to resist doing evil because you're close to the Heart of Apocalypse where this KO tournament is taking place. So I say that because I do believe Scott Snyder and Joshua Williamson in interviews misspoke. And I'm very particular, and I reread their interviews. You can win this tournament by being merciful. You can absolutely win this tournament by taking the higher ground. Superman proves it in this issue. So the central conceit of this series about all these heroes being merciless to each other is just flat out wrong. Now, that's okay, because you can still enjoy the hell out of this fight. If you're a Captain Adam fan, I think there's something here for you. If you love the Monarch, there's something here for you. You love Superman, there's his moralizing. It's all here for you. But this isn't about these heroes embracing darkness and all this other jazz, which, frankly, I was kind of hoping I'd see more of that. And that's okay. I'm still enjoying this. I'm just saying that I came in with some preconceived notions that I have discovered are wrong. And I'm not going to say I'm disappointed. I'm just I had to sort of reread this and sort of get a better appreciation of what was really happening here. And so the way that I get more enjoyment out of interpreting this issue is that I can see now what they meant more clearly, that Superman, that Captain Atom allowed himself, he doesn't have the moral compass that Superman has, Superman being the North Star of the DC universe. Captain Atom allowed himself to become a little bit too corrupted by the Omega particles, by the Heart of Apocalypse, and he has a desire to not only win the tournament but to reshape the Earth the way he wants it to be. Whereas Superman is somehow remaining pure. He's resisting. He's somehow defeating his opponents while maintaining his purity. I also want to say one other thing. One little nitpick that's going to, I think, annoy some people, because it annoys me just a little bit. All those 16 artifacts in DCKO number 2 that you acquired, you don't get them on the next rounds of the tournament. So any rewards you pick up, you don't get to keep. So Superman doesn't have the Omega Sanction anymore. Doesn't have the Omega. So those 16 artifacts, they're gone. That was just for that particular round. So it's almost like they start fresh de novo at the end of each at the beginning of each round of each tournament, and that's fine. It allows the writers to be as creative as they want to script and telegraph and to choreograph the fighting for us. And I will say, as a credit to Joshua Williamson, given the incredible nature of the powers here, I thought he did a good job, relatively speaking, scripting the different iterations of Superman and Captain Atom. And this fight, I thought he nailed the characters good. I thought he got the Superman's moralizing, and I'm being hard on Superman, but he nailed Superman because he's been doing a good job writing Superman, and I thought he did a good job with Nathaniel, Captain Atom. And at the end of the day, I was entertained here. It did make my top 5. I did have fun with it. And I sort of appreciated it because I needed to correct my thinking because I had a misapprehension. I had sort of misconceived this whole KO tournament. And I don't think you did. I don't think you did, Jace. I did. So I take full responsibility for that. And it's okay, but I'm glad it sort of reshaped my thinking as to how this tournament's going to go moving forward, because it's still a lot of fun, but it's not near as dark. It's not near as dark as I thought it was going to be, because I had prejudged it based on death metal and the fact that when we're talking about Scott Snyder, remember what Scott Snyder did in his Justice League series that went for 39 issues. He had Doom defeat. He had the people of Earth choose Doom over justice. So Snyder is accustomed to writing depressing tales, and so I assumed a little bit too much Doom and not enough justice here. But I think that Superman may end up winning this. I'm inclined to believe, but I don't know. But anyways, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. I know I've been doing a lot of talking. You said I could go first, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, these are billion-dollar properties, so you can't go too far off the range. Yes, yeah. I based my picks on not who I wanted to win, but who I thought editorially would win. And I've gone on record many times as saying that I think Superman's going to win this because, again, the first Metal series was a Batman story. The second Death Metal was Wonder Woman, so it's Superman's turn. That's what I think, and that's not based on anything story-wise, right? It's just. That's more of hey, that would be an editorial decision, not in what would make the best story or what have you. I also haven't read ahead like you have, so take this with a grain of salt. But when Josh and Scott say, yeah, who's ever going to be the most, merciless is going to win the tournament, I don't think you can say at this point, because even if you've read ahead, we still don't have January and February stories available to us. So it might be in the end that Superman does have to do something completely merciless to win the tournament. So
that's true.
You got to take
true.
Yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Up to this point, you're probably right. Superman is still being Superman, although you could argue that he acted a little bit out of character in DCKO2 with what he did because he was angry or whatever, and he's angry here. He allows himself to feel that anger. But you're right. This is much more character. The characterization of Superman in this issue is much more kind of true to form. Now, Captain Atom is not in a lot of ways, right? Like, and it's explained at the end. You mentioned it. Superman's like, yeah, you're too close to seeing it. You're too wrapped up, and maybe it is because of the attitude that Captain Atom is taking into this round of the tournament. With you got to do whatever you got to be willing to do whatever it takes to win. Winning is all that matters, or whatever. So I'm going to sound a little bit hypocritical here because I I don't know that I want that darker side. Although of these heroes, although I agree with you, if that's what Josh and Scott said, then that's what we should be getting. Maybe we just haven't got to that point in the story yet. So I enjoyed what we had in DCKO2 in Superman deciding, hey, I'm going to get the Omega Sanction. I'm going to be willing to kill these elder gods. They were already dead, whatever. We could debate that, what have you. But the point being that Superman characterized here is pretty true to character. And Captain Atom, unfortunately, depending on how you view the character, you could say that his characterization is true to form as well. But that's what bothers me about it. I feel like I go back to the 1987 Carrie Bates written Captain Atom as kind of my favorite iteration of the character. You could argue, hey, simpler time, late 80s, what have you. But then since then, and mostly with what happened with Armageddon 2001, where it was supposed to be Hank Hall, and then it got leaked, and so then they changed it to Captain Atom, and now it's kind of nebulous or whatever. But we see him clearly as Monarch here. I don't care for the characterization as Captain Atom being this sort of morally weak character that is so susceptible to being corrupt. I feel like we haven't gotten a definitive run for Captain Atom. I feel like the character has so much potential. I mean, we look at who Dr. Manhattan is and how well known he is as a character and what have you, and how powerful he is or whatever. What a lot of people don't realize is Dr. Manhattan is based on Captain Atom. And I think the majority of people that are comic fans that are familiar with these characters, if you ask them, hey, who's more powerful, Dr. Manhattan or Captain Atom? I bet you 99% of them would say Dr. Manhattan. But Captain Atom is just as powerful. But it's just that Dr. Manhattan has had, he's been better written. And when you talk about Captain Atom, I feel like, man, he always gets the short end of the stick. He's always getting shit on. And that's still what we have here. Whether it's whomever writing him, Tom King in the recent Jenny Sparks series, or, Joshua Williamson here writing Captain Atom as somebody who's susceptible to being corrupted, much more susceptible to being corrupted, willing to do whatever it takes and what have you. So that's supposedly what we're supposed to get from these heroes, as you pointed out, in this tournament, but yet he still loses. So it kind of doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to shit on Captain Atom, but then he still doesn't get to beat Superman. Well, I didn't necessarily, even though Captain Atom, I feel like, I'm probably one of the bigger Captain Atom fans that you'll find, but I still didn't want Captain Atom to defeat Superman, but I didn't want him to be defeated like this, where it's almost like his moral weakness and his ability to be corrupted is what brings about his downfall. Like, I still keep waiting for a version of Captain Atom or for him to be written in such a way where he's actually a heroic guy, where it actually talks about the fact that, like, the sacrifice that he made to become part of the experiment that turned him into Captain Atom, and how selfless that was. And yet he's almost always written as a selfish character. And I dislike it for him as a character. I think he deserves more. And I think the best Captain Atom iteration was actually the New 52 Captain Atom that was written by J.T. Kroll with Freddie Williams doing art. I highly encourage you guys to go listen to my interview I did with them last year. It was a fantastic chat. We got into the nitty gritty of what they were trying to do and what they would have done had it continued or whatever. And that was a much more human character, as opposed to the Captain Atom that we get so many times, who's almost this prototypical, like, anti-hero, who, the way he's written is either as kind of this non-thinking military soldier who just follows orders, or this very egocentric character who his power's gone to his head. And I just think there's a better way to write the character. I think the character deserves more than that. Go back and read his earliest iteration in the 1987 series, or read the J.T. Kroll, Freddie Williams series, and you can see the potential that this character has. I just keep waiting for somebody to do it correctly. I almost want Jeremy Adams to pick it up, because he would go and do his homework. And Jeremy Adams' father actually was, he did some comic art back in the day, and Captain Atom was one of the characters he worked on. So that
Cool.
would be kind of an interesting thing to have happen. But yeah, so a lot of what I was disappointed with this issue just was the characterization of Captain Atom. As far as the larger story and what you're talking about in terms of, hey, can merciless, merciful, whatever, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I picked Superman to win the whole thing, so I mean, you could be right, but will he do something at the end? I mean, we were already told that nobody that's in the tournament's actually going to win, and we see hints here of the dark side as Booster Gold, that he's actually going to be the one to win. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how it's all going to play out? I will say that the art from Sean Isaacs is really cool, and the actual fight and seeing the different versions of Captain Atom, old costumes. And him, Captain Atom, trying to cheat and combine like that was all cool visually, but yeah, I mean, narratively, the story, it just was a little bit choppy. You mentioned how it's not really explained, what Captain Atom tries to do, and then allows Superman to have all their powers combined or whatever. It sort of didn't need to be that way in order for Superman to win. I don't think. Yeah. I do agree that how Captain Atom won the first round was really cool. How Superman won the second round was actually cool too. Yeah. But because it's almost like they did it with the way that Captain Atom won the first round. It's almost like it forced them to go into the 853rd century Superman, who was immune to kryptonite because of the way they did it, like that. So, I mean, cool moments. And it's certainly, as much as I have little nitpicks with the characterization of Captain Atom in this book, visually and those moments, I think it served its purpose in terms of, if we look at the real reason that DCKO exists, forget about, okay, we have to tie it into Omega and the Absolute Universe and Darkseid and what's happening there. Like, the real reason and sort of the initial impetus for the series being created by DC was this idea that, hey, we all love comics. We all have had those conversations standing around in the comic shop. Who would beat who in a fight? Like, that's where this story, this event originally came about. Them sitting around going, hey, let's do an event about who's going to beat who in a fight. And then you start building all the other stuff that's the canonical reason, the in-universe reason that it's happening. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, who would win in a fight? Let's just get some really cool moments or whatever. In terms of that, who would win in a fight between Superman and Captain Atom? This succeeds because you have a lot of really cool moments. If you think about it too much, yeah, there's little plot holes here and there. Yeah, the characterization doesn't line up 100% correctly. Yeah, the whole idea of the heroes having to be merciless we haven't seen that play out in the stories yet. Like, you can set all that aside if you just want to say, okay, here's the sort of in-universe answer to who would win a fight between Superman and Captain Atom. Then this is a success, especially with the art that we get from Sean Isaacs. And I also want to shout out, it's not just the line work, but I also think the color work in this issue is done really, really well from Trish Mulvihill and Hi-Fi as well.
Yeah, it's very, very well done, the color. Yeah, color work for sure.
I didn't really notice. Jorge Corona did the original cover, and then when you, at least in the digital copy that we got, when you turn to the first page, it gives us like the covers of all the rest. And apparently he did the main covers on all of them. Man, as soon as I saw that cover, I knew it was Jorge Corona. And I was like, ooh, I don't really like that cover. I'm not the biggest fan of Jorge Corona's style. Yeah. It gets that ink splatter all over it.
I will say this as well, and you can know this from the previews of in solicitations, is that the Jorge Corona covers and shows just the visceral, relentless, merciless. You see Superman and Captain Atom looking merciless, beating each other to death. It looks amazing, and that visceral kind of violence and fighting just isn't. It's just not in the issue, and unfortunately, I think that's something that I feel like a little bit. I feel a little bit. I wish there was a higher element of violence here, and I realize, in fairness to DC, in fairness to the amazing creative teams, I mean, there's how on God's green earth are they going to satisfy all of us fans? They're not. They have a very, very difficult job, because one of the other things is that I have mixed feelings about there being 3 iterations, that they're allowed different iterations. I didn't want to see the 853rd version of Superman. To me, there's only one Superman. I don't want them to be able to pick iterations of themselves. If I had my choice, they wouldn't be able to do that. But then that's me playing script doctor. I'd like to see just one version of Captain Atom, one Superman, where if Superman lost the first round, he's got to think on his feet for the second. He can't, to me, it's kind of a cheat to be able to say, oh, well, I'll just essentially become a completely different iteration of myself. And then, of course, we're going to get the electric blue Superman, and then we're going to get the, if you could just go on and on and on and on and on, right? But in any event, it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe we'll get Steve on, and when all these fights are over, we can have like an overview of all of them to see collectively what our thoughts on the whole thing when all is said and done. Because it's still an exciting time, and I am having a lot of fun reading these DC KOs.
I don't know. I kind of think you need the versions, because otherwise, doesn't Captain Atom just do the same thing? I mean, to your point, Superman's got to think on his feet and figure out a way to not get killed by kryptonite. But again, his answer to that was, let me be my 853rd version. It's got the gold, whatever. I mean, he could have used the power that he's got in Superman, the Ultimate Superman Limited right now, or what have you. Yeah. Anyway, there's a couple of fantastic covers that they're sort of similar in a way. Lucas Meyer's got a cover. Superman's got his shirt off for whatever reason, but he's like punching towards the screen. And then there's a Sean Isaacs version, which I think might be my favorite. I really like the Superman one by Lucas Meyer as well. Like I may end up getting both of those, but then the Captain Atom one where he's got his fist charged up by Sean Isaacs. And I love the fact that, in his shoulder that's in the foreground, that's closest to us, we see the reflection of Superman. Like both those covers are fantastic. And that being said, I think I ordered the Jorge Corona cover because I just ordered cover A without looking at who did it, unfortunately. So I may end up with 3 covers on this one. So anyway, that does it for the books that we're going to talk about in detail, everybody. There are a few other single issues that are out this week. Don't ask me why, because you can still find this book in dollar bins. But for some reason, DC is giving us a facsimile edition of All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder. That's the Frank Miller series that never was completed, with art by Jim Lee. And there is a new a new cover with Joker on it for some reason by Sajad Shai, who I know and is a friend and is a fantastic artist. So that's out this week. We also have a facsimile edition of DC Comics 66 that's coming out this week. And then a facsimile edition of Limited Collector's Edition C43, which is a Kurt Swan cover, and it's Christmas with the Superheroes, has a bunch of Christmas stories. And then Teen Titans Go is getting its 10th issue is out this week as well. So quite a few other issues, facsimiles, and then Teen Titans Go, which, more for kids, so we don't typically cover it. And then in terms of collections this week, we've got Batman The Demon Trilogy hardcover, which collects the entire story. It's 304 pages, but for $50. Again, it's hardcover. This is by Mike W. Barr and Dennis O'Neil, with art and colors by Jeremy Bingham and Norm Breyfogle. Like some legendary stuff there. We have DC's Finest Superman, The Invisible Luthor, continuing the DC Finest line, which just collects a ton of old Golden Age Superman stuff. Action Comics 26 through 40, Superman 6 through 11, New York World's Fair Comics number 2, World's Best Comic number 1, and World's Finest Comics number 2 and 3. Now, World's Best Comic number 1 actually turned into World's Finest Comic, so you get the first 3 issues of that. And that New York World's Fair Comics number 2 is the first team up of Superman and Batman. So again, classic Golden Age stuff, 600 pages for $40. It's absolutely the most affordable way you're going to get those stories, because obviously we're talking about Golden Age Action Comics and Superman. You're going to be paying a pretty penny. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Superman number 1 has a 9.0 CGC graded just sold at auction last week, and it's the most expensive
Yeah.
comic ever.
Yeah,
Over
$9 million bucks, isn't it?
$9 million. And yeah, it's crazy. These guys just found it in their grandmother's attic.
Wow.
Absolutely insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
life-changing money for them. It'll be a Merry
Yeah.
Christmas in that family, I can guarantee you.
No, for sure.
There's also a DC manga box set, which collects a bunch of the manga versions of DC comics that have been created over the years. Superman versus Meshi, volumes 1 through 3, Batman Justice Buster, volume 1 through 4, and Joker, One Operation Joker, volumes 1 through 3. They're all trade paperbacks, and it comes in like a kind of a slip case, a big sort of cardboard slip case. Combined, all of those volumes, it's 10 different trade paperbacks. It's 1,704 pages of manga versions of the DC characters. And so when you consider it's that many pages, over 1,700 pages, and it's only $50.
Wow.
It's actually a really, really good deal. So if you're so inclined, if you're into manga and the manga versions of the DC characters, you might want to check that out. And then we also have Hitman by Garth Ennis and John McCrae. This is volume 2 omnibus hardcover, 1,144 pages, $125. And then finally, New Teen Titans, The Judas Contract, the deluxe edition hardcover, collecting that classic Wolfman Perez story, The Judas Contract. So New Teen Titans 39 and 40, Tales of the Teen Titans 41 through 44, Tales of the Teen Titans Annual 3, and material from World's Finest Comics 300. 240 pages for $30. Again, Wolfman Perez, really, really classic stuff. All right. I can't remember who went first, so I'm going to make you go first with your rankings this time, Rocky. What do you got?
Okay. Just a minute here. Coming in at number 11 was Birds of Prey 28. Coming in at number 10, Adventures of Superman, House of L, number 4. Coming in at number 9, DCKO, Batman Knife Fight, number 2. Coming in at number 8 was JSA 14. Coming in at number 7 was Batgirl issue 14. Coming in at number ranking 6 was Gotham Acedemy issue 3. Coming in at number 5 was Batman. Coming in at number 4 was DCKO, Superman v Captain Atom. And my top 3, coming in at number 3 is Absolute Green Lantern, issue 9. Coming in at number 2 was Cheetah and Cheshire. I forget the actual, robbing the Justice League.
Rob the Justice League, yeah.
Yeah, number 5. And coming in at number 1, and I think this is the first time I've ever put Poison Ivy as my pick. I think it's the first time I've ever had it as my pick of the week. But, she's earned it, and so kudos to J. Willow Wilson. I think it's a long time coming. She's more than earned her place here. I think she's probably had a lot of... I've had Poison Ivy in my top 3 or top 5 probably quite a bit. I can't remember if I ever put her in my number 1 spot. I don't think I have, but she's going there this week because just for a whole slew of reasons. I love how she's built a relationship between Jenna from HR and Poison Ivy, how she's built Poison Ivy's character. We've sung its praises. I could go on, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, you love yourself some Absolute, and you're digging on the DCKO event, and a regular main universe title is your pick of the week.
That's right.
I love it.
That's true.
All right. So number 11, I also have Birds of Prey number 28. At number 10, I have Adventures of Superman book of... Oh, no, that's... I'm reading yours. Okay. I do have Birds of Prey at number 28 at 11. At number 10, I have Batgirl 14. At number 9, I have DCKO Night Fight number 2. At number 8, JSA 14. At number 7, I have Adventures of Superman book of L number 4. Coming at number 6, Gotham Acedemy first year number 3. At number 5, DCKO Superman versus Captain Atom number 1. At number 4, I've got Batman number 4. At number 3, Absolute Green Lantern number 9. We have a lot the same this week, actually, probably maybe more than we ever have. And so we have the same top two. However, I've got Poison Ivy 39 at number 2 for me. And at number 1, I have Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League number 5. For all the reasons I said when I was reviewing it, the pacing, the overall plot, the gorgeous Nicola Scott art, just digging on it so much. And it's making me really excited for Greg Rucka to come back on Batwoman. It just reminds me how much I love Greg Rucka as a writer, and how he's one of those writers that can take, much like Jeremy Adams, and Rob Venditti's really good at this too, can take these characters that have been around for so long and tell stories with them that make it feel really, really fresh. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Again, don't forget to leave some comments below. Let us know what you thought of the books this week. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed to the audio-only podcast feed if that's your preference. Otherwise, head over to YouTube, find our individual channels, and subscribe. So wishing everybody a healthy and happy holiday season. That's going to do it for this episode, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.